So thank you everyone for joining this panel discussion, and we're going to be talking about women supporting women's career successes. So today's discussion is going to be focused on how all of our panelists have seen their career trajectories, their own career trajectories be supported by women. And they'll talk to us about their contributions and how they want to maybe support other women. So the women speaking to you this evening, many other working women leaders, they will all tell you stories about the other women in their lives who bolstered or propelled their career journeys, to help them become successful. And we know that women, all of you, bring qualities like discipline, strong will, empathy, flexibility, and creativity to become successful yourself. But you're also using these qualities to understand, be compassionate about the other women you work with, and support their and enable their success.
It's not very easy to think about careers, to think about growth, and to be able to do something professionally, especially when you come from an extremely conservative society and a family. I remember I was in my mid-teens when my family suddenly threw up the idea of me getting married, and I still remember that the chaos that resulted from my refusal to get married at the age of 18. But in that whole situation, I think if there is one person who really stood by me rock solid, was my mother. She turned out to be extremely supportive, and at the age of 18, when I saw my cousins get married, I took up a job in a BPO, and I started working. Cut to 2010 or 11, when I took up that job, and Uzma, she became my mentor. She made me realize that I need to really keep my happiness at the center of everything, because if I do that, I'll make sure that everyone else around me is happy and is well taken care of. So
one of the common themes just seems to be just having somebody else who's a woman in a position of power, and to know that that's actually possible. So I think that wasn't very different from me. At every step of the way, whenever I started to take on more responsibilities, I was somebody who always had to be told that it was possible and that I could do it. So I don't know if my managers actually realized that that's what they were doing for me, but in a way they were giving me that vote of confidence, which actually helped me, stop thinking about, any fears or wondering whether I could do it, but just, getting down to the actual work. Sometimes we don't realize that we need to be told that we're actually doing a decent job, and that constant reminder definitely helps. At home, I think it helped because nobody ever told us what to do or what path we should follow. I wasn't necessarily very opinionated about what I wanted to do in life, but I was given the freedom to actually find that on my own.
So I think I was brought up to be a rebel by my parents. I think that they were very happy when I said no to most things, and they kind of backed me in terms of all my choices. So then I went abroad to study because my father got transferred. And when his transfer ended and he came back, the big question was, should she stay back to finish her final year? And my parents again put their foot down and said, no, she needs to complete her education. And then she can choose what she wants to do. And then I stayed on for a fairly long time, and I came back to join the media. And I think throughout my career, there have been women who have just helped out. It was just the women's network. I mean, it's just been fantastic.
Among most of my friends, only my mother was working. She was very enthusiastic about her work. She was a teacher, and she kept telling me that repeatedly from my childhood that the freedom of life is almost equal to the financial independence. So you become free from everything. You can choose what you want to do. And that she was always telling me that you should always get a job that you like.
As a theme coming through here, my first manager was a wonderful commissioning editor who was so smart. And I remember on the first day she said, and it was a very lowly job. It was taking notes, doing faxes, remember them? It was all that kind of sort of dreary stuff, but she said, this job, you can take this and you can do anything with this job. And that's exactly right. I think the thing that comes through in these stories is you just need, you can't, what do they say? You can't be what you can't see. But once you can see somebody who's already sort of taken this path and is leading in their field, it's really quite inspiring. In terms of the industry, the journal publishing industry, when I first arrived, there was already a really large female workforce, mostly in certain areas though. I guess when I stepped out of the building and went to client meetings, I was working with societies and academic journals, and I was often the only woman in the room or one of the only women in the room. So then if we sort of move 20 years, that has changed a lot. So now, you know, we have in editorial boards almost 50-50. We have, you know, women in leadership sort of across the board. So that's one thing I feel really privileged and inspired to have witnessed.
Maybe about 5 years ago, which many of you know is when my son was born. I think that was the time that was a huge turning point for me, because that was a critical period, right, where I just wanted to know whether it was worth it trying to balance work with motherhood. And you know, through life I had always you know, my parents always encouraged me to be working. My sister is a doctor, but my mom was a homemaker. My sister, while she was a doctor, had given up her practice because she wanted to take care of 2 of her kids. So for me, right, it was very natural to think about, okay, now what do I want to do? And I was veering towards maybe I should just focus on my child, because, you know, I want to be to him what my mom was to me. And then I thought that, of course, if I would consult my mom-in-law, she would tell me, go for it, you know, like just take care of your baby. And so I called her up and I asked her, so what do you think I should do? And she's like, you must be kidding, because you need to show him what is normal. And for him, it's very important to see you work, so that he knows that it's the right thing to do, and he shouldn't expect his partner maybe in the future to do otherwise. And I think that was the turning point for me, when I realized, okay, now I know what I need to do. Even when I resumed, right, I was really trying to do all of it, you know. So I was trying to do a great job at work, at the same time trying to be a great mother and do it the way my mother did it. And then my sister like sat me down and she was like, you know, it's how you define your success, you know, and you create your own definition of what is success for you.
I have to say, I've been very fortunate throughout my career and my entire life that I haven't really faced discrimination because of the special people I've been lucky enough to have in my life, including my managers, mentors, my atypical father, who I think was as much responsible as leaving me no option but to be a professional.
I get to see a stark difference in the outside world and my inside world, which is, you know, within Cactus. You go out there, it's absolutely competitive. You walk into a room full of men and, you know, they've almost dismissed you before you enter. And it takes a lot, I think, to be able to just, you know, be confident, you know, go out there. And that's the other thing. I think, you know, a lot of women, they tend to lose confidence when they're, you know, when they're put out there. I always find comfort coming back home, and to me, home is Cactus, right? Where I have a set of, you know, peers. I mean, there's, you know, you don't have to deal with glass ceilings and things like that, right? And I think, you know, it's just lucky that, you know, I have a boss, I have a set of peers who respect me for who I am, and I don't have to, you know, once think about, oh my God, am I going to stand up among this, you know, stand up or be able to hold my own among this group of men. So I think, you know, that's really the difference between the outside and my inside world.
So in the reality is in Japan, the science community, especially in researchers, only 15% is women, which is like very terrible. And there are so many women, women researchers who feel responsible for being the lead or making this change. So there are many formative action happening in the country, but I think we are aiming to make it to 30% at least, so we can consider it's a critical mass. Otherwise, people don't care.
As leaders, we also need to be able to create those environments where, you know, women start to feel comfortable about being able to talk about pay, to be able to talk about, just what they are going through, and create those kinds of systems.
There were two things that we could do to sort of foster and support women in leadership as well. Number one, I'd say, is representation. So celebrate and champion success when you see it. Call people out, catch people in the act of doing, amazing things. We also need to, I think, challenge the norms, as I said, of what leadership looks like. And then there's a lot of amazing work happening in management, HR, so many fields around unconscious bias. So challenging all of our thinking around there about, what are the obvious barriers, but what are perhaps some of the less obvious barriers, and how can we get curious about understanding how we can help people overcome them?